books. Now this is something I've had an unbelievable... Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from a sort of interesting life.com. You're joining me on board good old Narrowboat Tilly, and today we're going to talk about publishing Kindle books. Now this is something I've had an unbelievable amount of requests to do a video on, and even going back as far as last year I did try to put together a proper off computer screen tutorial and guide on how to get files uploaded and get everything looking relatively similar as the final result on the Kindle than what you have in front of you as the original document. And really I realised as I was trying to do these proper instructional tutorial videos that it just wasn't quite, firstly, my style, but also every time I seemed to go through the system and setup, I felt as if there were always so many questions unanswered at the end of it, without me witching on and on and on forever, that it seemed to make the thing a little bit more daunting than it actually is. And I'll post links in the description to the Amazon pages on advice about uploading and actually getting the book files there. And instead, I thought I would actually just talk about something I can talk about, and that's my own experience of writing and publishing books to the Kindle over the last 5 years or so, and really share some actual experience and thoughts based on this last half a decade, which seems to have gone by in no time at all. Now, I suppose we'll start with, why do you want to write a book? Why do you want to publish it on the Kindle? And all of those questions are very important to ask yourself, because, and I'll say this as a massive disclaimer here, if you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to write a Kindle book and then become a millionaire overnight, then it's extremely unlikely to happen. And I mean, we'll get to this later on, but as time goes on, there seems to just be more and more competition, not only from other people writing similar books on similar things, but also with the unbelievable amount of free stuff there is on the internet these days. But like I say, more on that in a moment. Then it comes to actually writing your book and, like I say, thinking, why do you want to write a book? Because if it's motivated by money, then Kindle is definitely, or highly unlikely, I will say, to be the direction that you should really take. And again, I apologise, as I have been vanishing into just the blur of the background here, as for some reason the sun wants to come out as soon as I start filming, so completely throw off the white balance there. So really, I'd say the most important thing about books and writing and publishing that I have learnt was basically my first experiences of publishing little collections of short stories to the Kindle. Now, to put everything into context for this video, I have loved writing since I was even still in school. And then when I moved up to college and sort of over that 17, 18 sort of era, I literally wrote tens of thousands of words in a little fantasy book that will never see the light of day and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, like I say, the amount of, if I could go back and gather up all of the things, even from when I was in school, that I wrote just for fun rather than for actual schoolwork or for actual useful purposes, then I can't imagine how many thousand words we would be racking up. So after college, I ended up getting into writing just really short stories of only about 500 words each or thereabouts. And I would post those weekly to an old website that I used to run. And there's just all these different things that I've always done that have involved me getting basically opportunities to do more writing. And that's why I suppose a lot of these old things I used to do, I did them at all, because it was like, oh yeah, sit down, have a nice quiet bit of time writing, and then come back and think, oh, I think that story's terrible, I might rewrite the ending and that sort of thing. But basically that meant that once the Kindle era had really kicked off and really moved in, again, I'll just try and drop the white balance a little bit there. Once the Kindle era had really started, and I realised, hang on a minute, I love writing, and what's this? There's now a platform that I can just write my own stuff and publish it myself with. And in that excitement and that initial sort of early era of the Kindle being like a thing, I couldn't wait. And so I quickly gathered together like collections of 25 of these short stories that I'd written, and then put those together and posted those as one book. I only charged 77p for these books originally, because that was at the time the cheapest that you could publish something like that, on the 35% royalty. And honestly, it was just fantastic, exciting, and I loved it. And it was like, oh, look at this. And the fact that it was on Amazon and it seemed to be like, right, this is sort of relatively official looking. But of course, because I had never really studied writing technically, and I'd never learnt properly like about actual writing styles and things like that, and well, basic sentence structure and grammar. These books were awful, and the grammar and just the sentences being about 5 pages long, exaggeration, all of that sort of thing really meant that they were awful books on a technical level, and that's assuming if you even actually liked the stories that were written within them. So that was something that obviously then was reflected in what people said when they read them, and equally, when I first started writing my proper books, or well, I call them my proper books, my boat life books and narrowboat books and things like that, in the more recent era, I was far more educated and far more aware of actual writing styles and the technical use of English and stuff. So the books came out slightly better than the earlier books, but it wasn't until I got my nan to start proofreading and properly editing these books before they went live that I realised just how rubbish at English I truly was. And that's something that I was absolutely astounded by, really. When I first got a copy of one of my books back off my nan, who really knows this stuff when it comes to this sort of thing, and there were so many commas and full stops and different sort of sentence structure suggestions where I'd written like about this much without having a full stop in it and all that sort of stuff. It really opened my eyes, and from like writing and publishing the last 4 boat books that I've done, I've learnt so much just from my nan alone, doing these sit-down sessions where we go through everything and see what she thinks and see about this sentence, that sentence, and whether this should be capitalised or not. It's unbelievable how much I've learnt just in those simple sessions of sat at the kitchen table at my nan's house. So thanks, Nan. And really, that's the important thing. Like I say, when it comes to actually writing the book, think, what's your motivation for it? Are you writing because you enjoy writing? Are you writing because you think that you can become the next Dan Brown? And I'm unfortunately not talking about myself there. Or are you writing for the pure joy of it? Or are you trying to write something educational to inform people about stuff? It's like, just think about what you're writing and then think. And definitely, if you're not familiar with the English language like I certainly wasn't, then please do have a look around some different videos, some different websites about grammar and that sort of thing. And it might prove maybe as eye-opening to you as it did to me, just how many little mistakes you can make. But once you know about them, how much better things read when you remove all of those little things that you might not even... If you read back your own work yourself, I find that because you know how the sentence meant to be said in your head, you will miss sometimes where, oh, needs a comma in there, needs a comma in there. So really, just think about everything as you're doing it, I would say. So once you actually get your book uploaded and it's available on Amazon, this is when your real problems begin, really. Because there's so many people doing this sort of thing now that it's extremely difficult to get anybody to look at your stuff, yet alone actually think of spending 99p or 1.99 on it. And I suppose really, it's, well, if we look at the whole internet in general, you've got so many people writing short books like I do on any given topic. You've got so many people who are proper actual published authors doing it. And because Amazon obviously is a huge place where all of these people come together, just on the Amazon page there's an unbelievable amount of competition. Then if you look further across the internet, you've got so much free stuff out there, such as YouTube, where there's literally there's so much stuff on YouTube that it's basically infinite because you could never get through it all in a lifetime. Then if you come back one day, there's even more, by goodness knows how many hours that have been uploaded while you've been away from the internet. Equally the same with, like, well, just like I say, even YouTube, Spotify, things like this, like video, documentaries, music, short films, comedy, all this sort of stuff just there for free in quantities beyond comprehension, really. Then obviously if you look around the internet, there's all sorts of vlogs and all sorts of different people doing different stuff in written form for absolutely nothing. And so basically this is the thing where I feel now more than ever it's very difficult to ever go into like publishing a book and think, oh yeah, this is it, this is my retirement, I'm going to be, next month I'm going to be off and down, I don't know, tourists just jetting around the world in the sun or something. I didn't have an example then off the top of my head. That was embarrassing. But I hope you get the general gist of what I mean. It's like, there's so much stuff online now that you've got to say, why would anybody find your book and be able to find it first of all, and then think, oh yeah, I'm going to give even just 99p to read that. And that's something that is, I think, going forward going to be a real issue for, just how I suppose with music and these streaming services and YouTube and stuff like that, and obviously piracy has made it a very interesting situation in the music industry, that there's more music out there than ever being listened to people in quantities that were previously impossible if everybody used to have a cassette or a CD. But now you see things like people getting millions and millions and millions of streams, and then the writer getting a check for, like, I don't know which song it was. Recently there's an example, I think somebody got about $8,000 after a song they wrote had something like 178 million plays online. And that's the sort of level that you think, flipping heck, you can get 178 million plays from a song you've written and not make enough of that to live off. And it's that fascinating thing that then when you take it down to the level that most people will ever see their stuff being viewed or downloaded, which is definitely nowhere near 178 million views, you suddenly are like, well, how much less of a chance have I got, basically? And so that's something that you've really got to think, again, tying into, if you're thinking you're going to set up this massive Kindle empire with all these books that'll sell millions of copies, then it's unlikely to happen. And as I say, if I didn't enjoy writing and I was thinking, oh yeah, I need to make some money, then there's no way I would go, well, what I'm going to do is sit down and write some Kindle books. I would think, yeah, right, I need to come up with the next iPhone, or the next some sort of device like that. The next renewable energy source, for example. But yeah, anyway, we're getting well off topic here. So that's just what I wanted to say. There's so much competition out there that even if you were just working within the competition on the Kindle service itself, you've got a lot of work to do to get anybody to actually see your book, yet alone think, oh yeah, I might buy that. And that, I think, is something where, if you consider me, I've got, coming up to 11,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel, about 20,000 followers just under over on Twitter, and I can tweet something and maybe get, I don't know, 10 likes on it, or whatever they call them these days, or a couple of retweets. If it's a really good picture, then it might make its way all the way up to almost 20 things. But that tweet will be viewed by maybe 1,000 people plus. But there'll only be a certain few people out of that lot who, even if they look at the picture and go, oh, that's a nice picture of the canal, or oh, that's a nice picture of Dan's face, or whatever there is going on over there, then even if there's 1,000 people see it, there might only be 3, 4, 5 people actually take the moment to just press the like button, because that's a tweet that's in a stream of, goodness knows, potentially tens of thousands of other tweets on some of these timeline in one day. So again, that's the basic principle, that you sort of have to expand to something more sort of fleshed out as a platform as Amazon.com and .co.uk for selling stuff. But the more time that passes, the more people get involved in doing this sort of thing, the more competition there is, the more that potential people who might have looked at your book and thought, oh yeah, I'll buy that, the more all of those people are spread around a greater area within even the same topics very often. So I think personally it's getting more and more difficult to publish the Kindle with any expectation that you might actually sell, I mean, even if you're lucky, more than maybe a couple of 100 units. The final thing that I want to talk about is the actual long-term potential for Kindle authors and writing and publishing on Kindle, because it's still such an early stage of the Kindle even existing that we just don't know. I mean, are you writing books now that are going to be totally irrelevant? Are you writing about current events or a guide to the upcoming Olympics or something like that, that in a decade's time nobody will be likely to really want to read your guide to an event that happened years and years ago, except for maybe the historical interest of what people thought at the time. But I suppose really there's the potential as well, as more and more people move into writing these sort of books and move into the fields and areas that you're writing about yourself. are your books just going to become irrelevant and nobody's going to read them just because they're old? And look, there's all these cool new books that have come out. And so these are a lot of questions that we don't really have answers to at the moment. And I think it's something that is definitely, as time goes on, going to probably lead to the making and breaking of a lot of people if they do put too many eggs in one basket and think, oh yeah, Kindle, look at this, internet age, this is the future and this is how we're going to make a fortune and retire to the sun and all that sort of stuff. And I think this is something that I can give you an example now of how you've also got the potential of how are the policies and Amazon's terms and conditions going to change? Because that can completely and utterly wipe you out, I suppose. If they suddenly said, right, if you're publishing on the 70% royalty basis, we're going to now make people buy your books for 3 times the price and you're only going to get 10% of the royalty, then, I mean, they'd be quite within their right to do that as you're using their platform. And I'm definitely not saying they are going to do that. And I'm sure that they would never do that. It's unlikely they would ever do that. Touch wood. But you can see the potential that at any moment Amazon can change the policy or change the way that something works on the website. And suddenly, if you've been a super successful author, maybe selling like, I don't know, if you're like lucky enough to be able to sell like tens of thousands of books a year, then maybe your royalty will be absolutely slashed, or maybe the search settings will change and nobody will see your books very often coming up as results if they get, I don't know, too old, or whatever happens to these things to make these decisions happen. So hopefully you can see there. My example of this is, recently, Amazon changed their policies. I think it might have been the start of this year, in fact. But basically, I used to sell my books as the cheapest price Amazon you could sell on Amazon was 77 pence. And then if you wanted the 70% royalty, so basically the cheapest you could sell a book without Amazon taking most of the money, or at least most of the money not finding its way to you, was £1.53. And people may remember, and I always used to say all my books are only £1.53, and what a bizarre number that was. And that was because it was the cheapest that I could get my books out there without seeing the majority of that sales price vanish to just different places. And so then, at the start of this year, they changed the setup of it so that VAT and stuff was included in the price, and all sorts of different things happened. But now the cheapest you can sell at all is 99p, and then the cheapest you can sell on the 70% royalty is £1.99. So that's why all my books at the start of this year went from £1.53 if they were at that level to £1.99. It wasn't me going, oh yeah, we're going to get loads more money here, or oh yeah, we're going to scalp a few people and get these prices hiked before the next book's out and that sort of thing. It was literally, I had absolutely no choice and no say. And even though the price went up by 46p, or it went up by about 40 something pence, even though it went up by that much, the actual increase in the royalty only went up by maybe, I don't know if it's about 10p or something like that. But it wasn't like suddenly, oh yeah, look at this, I'm selling books for 40p extra, and oh yeah, I'm getting like almost an extra 40% on what they were selling for. And so again, that's the sort of thing that the policy can change. And I genuinely believe that I've lost sales to these of books because the price is now at that slightly higher level. It's like, oh, it's £2. It's not just like 153 or 77p or whatever. So that's something that you've got to be aware of. Right then, my friends, I've just seen that this video file has now ticked over the 25-minute mark. So I really need to get this edited down, and I'm going to stop talking now. But I hope that this has been interesting or given you things to think about if you are considering publishing on the Kindle, especially if you're considering it as like a way to make money or a way to create that sort of super income or anything like that. Because basically, it's very unlikely that that's actually going to happen. And I often think, like, when I tweet about me books and stuff like that, that people think, oh, look at this, he's a right sellout, like, tweeting these books all the time and all this sort of stuff. Even though, potentially, I mean, I still sometimes don't sell a book in a day, like, and that's the level that you have to deal with. That even, like I say, if you consider I've got almost 20,000 followers on Twitter and this YouTube channel's got around 11,000 subscribers, that after having 4 books out in the wild, it'd be possible to go a whole 24 hours. Like, somebody out of all that thing and like 3 million views on YouTube and all that, it'd be possible to have a 24-hour period where at least one person doesn't go, go on, I'll read one of them books. But it's unfortunately just the way that the world works. So I suppose I'll wrap things up and say thank you so much for watching. Check out my other videos for loads of boaty stuff and scenery from the canal. Please do, if you would like to support me, check out my books for the Kindle, as a suitable plug for once. You'll find links to them in the description below, along with Facebook and all that sort of stuff as well. And I suppose really I'll just wrap things up in the usual way and say thanks for watching. I hope this has proven slightly interesting for somebody out there. But until the next time, keep it book-worthy, keep it boat-worthy, have a fantastic day, and of course, farewell.